The pen trembled in my hand. Not from weakness. God, no. At 72, my hands still knew the strength of years spent building homes, lifting beams, and turning a plot of nothing into something people could live in. I could still outpace men half my age if I wanted. But this shaking, it wasn't age. It was something far colder. A tremor born from disbelief and betrayal. Before all this, before lawyers and lies and silent betrayals, I was just a father who wanted the best for his boy. I didn't grow up with much. Born to factory workers who never owned a square inch of land, I swore I'd change that narrative. And I did. Through decades of carpentry, contracting, and long nights doing double shifts, I built something, brick by brick, board by board. Not just a house, but a legacy. Ethan was the golden thread in that legacy. My wife, Marie, used to say he had my eyes and her ambition. She wasn't wrong. Even as a child, he could charm anyone. He talked his way out of punishments, into opportunities, and through doors most kids his age wouldn't even knock on. I was proud. So proud, it blinded me sometimes. Marie passed when Ethan was 20. I'll never forget how he clung to me at her funeral, tears soaking into my jacket. That was the moment I promised myself I'd protect him, no matter what. I'd be father and mother, supporter and safety net. Maybe that's where I made my first mistake. Over the years, I co-signed his loans. Bought him a car when his died. Gave him a down payment for his condo when he, almost, got a promotion that never came. I kept giving because I thought that's what fathers did. Isn't that love? Sacrifice without keeping score? But eventually the asks turned to expectations. And the gratitude vanished. Still, I blamed myself. Maybe I hadn't taught him enough about responsibility. Maybe I coddled him too long after Marie died. Maybe. We talked often back then. Well, he talked. I mostly listened. About work, about stress, about how hard it was to build a life these days. He always knew how to say the right thing to earn my sympathy. And I gave it freely, eager to still matter in his life. Then, last year, he came to me with an idea. You should transfer the house to me, he said over dinner one evening. Just for paperwork reasons. It'll save us a lot if something ever happens. You know, avoid probate, inheritance tax, that kind of thing. I remember blinking at him, fork paused in midair. It wasn't the idea that surprised me. It was the casualness. Like it was nothing. Like decades of sweat, love, and memory could be filed under tax strategy. But again I said nothing. I nodded. Smiled. Let me think about it. I did think about it. For weeks. And in that time, I watched him more closely. I saw the way he brought over papers. Just to review. The way he'd talk over me if I had questions. The way he subtly hinted that maybe I was getting tired, forgetting things. The cracks in our bond widened. But still, I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I started writing things down. Watching. Waiting. And planning. Because something told me that what Ethan wanted wasn't safety for me. It was security for himself. It's a strange thing, watching someone you love morph into someone you barely recognize. Ethan had always been sharp, but in the early days, his intelligence was soft-edged. Curious. Kind. I remember him at 6 years old, taking apart my old radio, not to destroy it but to see how it worked. He was careful with the wires, gentle with the knobs. He respected the craft, even then. But now his sharpness cut. He spoke in measured tones, the way lawyers do when they've rehearsed the truth until it fits just right. He dressed better than I remembered, sleek suits, flashy watches. Talked about equity and leveraging value, like someone trying to impress a client. And when he looked at me, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was calculating something, my worth, maybe, or how long he had to keep up appearances before the ink dried on that signature. The house changed things between us. Once the deed was transferred, His visits grew fewer. The check-ins were shorter. The tone colder. And when I called just to talk, I could feel the irritation humming beneath his words. "Everything okay, Dad? You sound confused again," he said once. Confused. The word hit me like a slap. As if I hadn't spent a lifetime making decisions that kept him fed, safe, and secure. As if I were fading, and fast. It didn't start with fury. It started with a question. What would Marie say if she saw this? She always believed in grace, but she also believed in boundaries. "Love doesn't mean you let people walk all over you," she once told me. I used to think that applied to strangers. Never to our own son. But now I understood. That night, I sat at my desk with a blank notebook and wrote a single sentence. "He thinks I'm weak." I underlined it. Then I started making a plan. Not for revenge out of spite, but for balance. For truth. To take back what was mine. I called Frank again, this time with resolve. "I want to undo the transfer," I said. "And I want to do it without him seeing it coming." He chuckled. "Now that's the John the First, remember." We discussed my legal options. The forgery gave me leverage. If pushed, I could press charges. But I didn't want him in jail. I wanted him to feel what he tried to make me feel, powerless. So we laid the groundwork. Quietly. Carefully. Meanwhile, I played the role Ethan expected, tired, forgetful, cooperative. I let him think I'd moved on. He started texting more. Even stopped by again, more polished than ever. "I'm just making sure everything's smooth with the listing," he said, smiling that polished smile. I nodded. "Whatever you think is best." He didn't notice I was recording everything. Because the seed had been planted. And I was done being quiet. While Ethan planned the sale, I planned the takedown. Frank helped me file a petition to reverse the title transfer, based on forgery and fraud. Quietly. No notice to Ethan yet. Just groundwork. I gathered evidence, voicemails, fake signatures, emails he thought I hadn't seen. Every bit of it backed my case. And then I did something that surprised even me. I visited the real estate agent handling the listing. I introduced myself calmly, politely. When I showed them the forged paperwork and my original deed, their face went pale. "I had no idea," they whispered. "He told us you were sick. Said you wanted to move into assisted living." I almost laughed. "He lied," I said. "But he's about to learn that I'm very much still here." I asked them to halt the listing, and they did. I didn't tell Ethan. Not yet. Let him keep thinking everything was going according to plan. Let him feel the pride of a win that never existed. Because the house wasn't his to sell. And I was no one's fool. Ethan came by 2 days later, grinning like a man who'd already cashed the check. "Got a buyer lined up," he said, sipping my coffee like it still belonged to him. "Over asking, too." I smiled back. "That's great, son." He didn't notice the difference in my tone, how steady it was. He still saw me as tired, soft. The mask he wore hadn't cracked yet. But I could see through it now. He spoke with forced warmth, dropping lines like, "This move is really for your own good," and, "You'll love the condo I found for you." As if I were a burden he was nobly relocating. I just listened. Let him talk. The more he said, the more he revealed. About his debts. The second mortgage he took without telling anyone. The investor he promised a quick sale to. He needed the house. Fast. And he didn't know it was already out of his reach. As he left, I watched him walk down the porch. Shoulders back, head high. Still playing the role. Still unaware the stage was collapsing beneath him. It happened on a Wednesday. The courthouse was quiet, almost serene, when Frank and I filed the motion. Attached were the forged documents, side-by-side handwriting comparisons, voice recordings, and a written affidavit outlining the deception in clear, measured words. My signature had been faked. My authority bypassed. My trust broken. The clerk didn't flinch. She had probably seen worse. But for me, it was a turning point. It wasn't about punishment, it was about reclaiming the dignity Ethan tried to bury. We requested an emergency injunction to block any sale, refinance, or claim on the house. By Friday, the order was approved. The house couldn't be touched. Not by Ethan. Not by anyone. That evening, he called, frantic. "Dad, something weird just happened. I got a call from the agent. They said the deal's frozen." Something about the title being challenged? I kept my voice even. Calm. "I know." He went quiet. "You know?" I filed it. Dead silence. "Why would you do that?" he finally asked, voice cracking. Now he sounded like a boy again. Not a schemer. Not a fraud. Just lost. Caught. "Because you lied," I said softly. "You forged my name. You tried to sell the house behind my back." It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I let the silence hang heavy between us. "I trusted you, Ethan. You saw me vulnerable and used it as an opportunity. You didn't come to help. You came to take." "Dad, I didn't mean." But he did. And he knew it. "This is your one warning," I said. "Back off. Before this gets worse for you." He hung up without another word. And I sat there, breathing steady for the first time in weeks. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And I had delivered it without lifting a hand in anger. Checkmate. I remember standing by the window, staring through the curtain like a man in a dream. I had spent years telling myself that Ethan was just overwhelmed. That he needed help, not judgment. But in that moment, all of those illusions shattered. My son wasn't lost. He was gone. Replaced by someone who saw my love as leverage. My trust as a weakness. I wanted to scream. To throw open the door and demand answers. But I didn't. Because the man on that phone wouldn't have heard me. He'd already decided who I was, old, forgetful, in the way. And so, I stayed quiet. Not because I was afraid. But because I was done doubting. And because a man like Ethan didn't need confrontation. He needed a mirror. And I was going to hold one up to his face, at just the right moment. It started with a letter. One of those bland, official envelopes, return address from a real estate firm I didn't recognize. I almost tossed it. Thought it was junk. But something made me open it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was suspicion that had been boiling in my guts since Ethan's phone call on the porch. Or maybe I just knew, in the way parents sometimes do, that the next few seconds would change everything. Inside, a seller's disclosure. Property listing agreement. Digital renderings of my house, with for sale soon watermarks across them. My house. My wife's garden. Even the hand-carved railing I installed one summer after her funeral. All packaged up like merchandise. There was a signature at the bottom of the page. Ethan's. And mine. Only I never signed it. I sat down hard at the kitchen table, the letter trembling in my hands. My name was scribbled across the documents in that shaky penmanship Ethan once imitated for jokes, back when forging my signature was part of a magic trick, not a legal heist. He had faked it. He had faked my signature to start the process of selling the house out from under me. That was the moment everything went quiet inside me. Not angry. Not yet. Just quiet. The kind of stillness that settles in right before a storm. I went to the study and pulled out the old lockbox Marie and I used for emergencies. Birth certificates. Titles. Insurance. And tucked away inside, the original deed, still in my name, with the corrected copy showing Ethan's recent addition. I looked at the dates. He had filed the transfer 2 days after I had my blood pressure scare. The one that landed me in the ER overnight. 2 days. That was when he saw his opening. When he realized fear made people vulnerable. I remembered lying in the hospital bed, groggy, tubes in my arm, and Ethan standing at the foot of it with that overly concerned look. "Don't worry, Dad," he had said. "I'll take care of everything." And he did. He took care of everything. While I lay there wondering if my heart would hold out, my son was plotting how to take what I had built. A lie that big doesn't just burn. It scars. I spent the rest of the night reviewing documents. I contacted a friend of mine, Frank, a semi-retired real estate attorney I used to play poker with. Told him I needed discretion. No assumptions. Just facts. He reviewed the files, went quiet, then let out a long, low whistle over the phone. "You've got a case," he said. "Forgery. Misrepresentation. And with the right pressure, we might even prove intent to defraud. But this won't just hurt him legally. It'll destroy him, John." I paused, hand clenched tight around the phone. Destroy him. Was that what I wanted? Maybe. In that moment, maybe I did. But part of me also wondered how we'd gotten here. What I had missed. What I had enabled. What love turns into when entitlement poisons it slowly, year after year. I thanked Frank and hung up. Then I poured myself a drink I hadn't touched in years. Not to numb the pain, but to toast the truth. Because now, there were no more doubts. No more excuses. Ethan lied. And I had proof. Grief doesn't always come with death. Sometimes it comes with discovery, with the moment you realize someone you love has been standing behind you with a dagger for years, just waiting for you to stop looking. After I uncovered the forged documents, something in me broke. Not loudly. Not violently. Just quietly. Like a crack across glass you don't notice until the light hits it just right. I didn't sleep much that week. I'd sit in the living room in the dark, the house silent around me. Marie's photo still rested on the mantel, her gentle smile frozen in time. I used to find comfort in that photo. Now it felt like a silent witness to my failure. I had raised this boy. I had buried my wife and poured every ounce of love I had left into Ethan. And he took it all, and treated me like a problem to be managed. He didn't just betray me. He erased me. Piece by piece, he was trying to replace me while I was still breathing. I replayed it all, every misread flag, every time I justified his selfishness as stress or ambition. Every moment I ignored the knot in my gut because I wanted so badly to believe he loved me the way I loved him. That was the worst part, not the betrayal itself, but the knowing that I had been complicit in my own downfall. I gave him access. I gave him trust. I gave him everything. And he turned me into a stepping stone. One morning, I watched him pull into the driveway in that new SUV, one I hadn't seen before. Sleek, black, expensive. He strolled up to the porch like he owned the place. Because, on paper, he did. He knocked. I didn't answer. After a moment, he let himself in with his own key. He called out, "Dad?" I stayed seated in the sunroom, just out of view, listening to his footsteps wander through the kitchen, the hallway, then back toward the living room. "Dad, you home?" He tried again, tone cheery, like nothing was wrong. I waited for him to see the manila envelope I had left on the table. Inside, copies of the real estate documents, a letter written in my own hand, and a single photo of him and Marie, the three of us at his high school graduation, arms around each other, her eyes bright with pride. No accusations? Just evidence. Let him sit with it. Let him feel the weight of what he'd done. I heard his footsteps stop. Silence. Then the soft sound of paper unfolding. More silence. I didn't know if he read it all. I didn't want to see his face. Not yet. He didn't call out again. Just left. No apology. No excuses. No denial. Just the door closing behind him, like the end of a chapter neither of us knew we'd been writing all along. And when the house was quiet again, I exhaled, for the first time in weeks. Because now he knew I knew. And the mask had shattered. No more pretending. No more lies. It was time to decide what kind of man I'd become in the face of this betrayal. Would I destroy him? Or would I rise above him? The silence after Ethan left wasn't peace. It was hollow. There's a difference, I've learned, between solitude and isolation. Solitude is chosen. Isolation is imposed. And even though the house still smelled like the oak polish I always used, even though Marie's favorite throw blanket still rested over the arm of the couch, the place no longer felt like mine. Technically, legally it wasn't. He hadn't sold it yet, hadn't had the chance, but the damage had been done. I was living in a space I no longer fully owned. A ghost in the home I built. Some days I wandered room to room just to remember what each one meant. The small dent in the hallway? Ethan ran into the wall with his bike when he was 6. I didn't fix it. I called it a memory mark. The chipped counter edge in the kitchen? Marie dropped a glass casserole dish there. She cried about it. I told her it gave the counter character. Those weren't flaws. They were stories. But now, all I could see were the fingerprints of what he wanted to erase. I stopped answering his calls. After the envelope, Ethan left me 3 voicemails over the next few days. The first sounded defensive. "Dad, I don't know what this is supposed to mean. We were on the same page, weren't we? You agreed to all this." The second was clipped, borderline angry. "You don't understand how hard it is to keep things afloat right now. I'm trying to protect what we've built. You're acting paranoid." The third one, he tried softening. "Look, can we talk? Face to face? This feels like a big misunderstanding. I love you, Dad. Call me back." I didn't. Not because I didn't want to. But because I didn't know if I could trust myself to say what I really wanted to say without it all spilling out like poison. The thing is, anger burns fast, but grief lingers. I wasn't just furious. I was heartbroken. I found myself reaching for the phone out of habit sometimes, thinking I'd tell Ethan about a bird I saw in the garden, or the old neighbor who stopped by to drop off cookies. Then I'd remember. He wasn't that boy anymore. He was a man who forged my name, and nearly sold the house I was planning to die in. I couldn't reconcile the two versions. The boy who once cried because he accidentally broke my fishing rod, and the man who silently tried to sell the foundation of our family for profit. Was he both? Or had I just failed to see the truth all along? One afternoon, I sat on the back porch, staring out at the yard. Marie's rose bushes had overgrown a bit, but they still bloomed. I knelt and started trimming them, hands steady, heart heavier than ever. That garden had been her sanctuary. I realized I'd let it go, just like I'd let my trust in Ethan go unchecked. By sunset, my hands were dirt-stained and sore. But the roses looked alive again. And something inside me shifted. This was still my home. Still my story. He may have taken the deed, but I hadn't given up my dignity. Not yet. Not ever. If Ethan wanted to steal something, he'd have to reckon with more than just a signature. He'd have to face the man who raised him. And I was just getting started. After the legal dust began to settle, I expected to feel triumphant. But I didn't. What settled in me wasn't victory. It was grief. Not over the house. It was never just about the house, but over the realization that I had lost something much deeper, the son I thought I raised. I went for long walks. Tried reading books I once loved. I even dug into the shed to restore Marie's old bench, hoping the work would quiet the noise in my head. It didn't. Instead, I kept replaying things Ethan had said over the years, little comments I'd brushed off. "You wouldn't understand, Dad. Your generation had it easy. Must be nice having everything paid off. I'm just trying to survive here." They hadn't sounded bitter then. But now I heard something else, resentment. Maybe even envy. Did he see me not as a father, but as a gatekeeper to something he believed he was owed? I thought about his childhood. I had worked constantly. Long days on job sites, weekends doing side gigs. I miss games. Miss dinners. I told myself it was for him, for the future. But did he grow up thinking I loved the house more than him? The thought made my chest ache. Maybe this betrayal wasn't born overnight. Maybe it festered. Quietly. Silently. And maybe I'd never noticed because I never looked close enough. The next morning, I found an envelope in the mailbox. No stamp. No return address. Inside, a folded note. I messed up. I don't know how to fix it. I thought I needed the house. I realized now I needed something else. I sat down on the porch and reread the note until the ink blurred from my grip. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was a crack in the armor. And sometimes cracks let the light in. I kept Ethan's note folded in my pocket for days. Not because I forgave him, but because something in those scribbled words felt different. Honest. Raw. Maybe the first honest thing he'd given me in years. That Saturday, I drove past his condo. It wasn't luxury anymore. The car was gone. No shine, no show. Just silence. He'd fallen harder than I realized. I didn't pity him. But I saw him. A man cornered by his own choices. A son who mistook desperation for entitlement. Who thought owning a house would fix a lifetime of pressure, debt, and disappointment. Maybe he didn't want to hurt me. Maybe he just didn't know how to ask for help. I sat in the car a while, watching the light in his window flicker on. I thought of Marie. She always believed in second chances. And for the first time, I asked myself, what if forgiveness wasn't weakness? What if it was the way forward, for both of us? I knocked on his door just after sunset. No calls. No warnings. He opened it slowly, his face thinner, tired, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with him. No mask this time. No smooth words. Just a sun stripped down by consequence. We stood in silence for a beat. Then he stepped aside, letting me in. The condo was mostly empty. The walls were bare. Even his voice sounded smaller when he finally spoke. I thought you'd never come. I almost didn't. I didn't sit. I didn't smile. I set a folded envelope on the table, his note to me, and the house keys beside it. His eyes flicked between them, unsure. You lied, I said. You stole my name. Tried to sell the house I built for your mother, for you. And I want you to know, I could have ruined you. I know, he whispered. But I didn't. Not because I forgot. Not because I trust you again. But because I finally realized I don't need revenge to win. He looked up, his voice cracking. Then why are you here? I let the silence answer before I spoke. Because I wanted to see if there was anything left of my son beneath all that greed. His head dropped. He choked back a sob. I messed up, Dad. I don't even know how to say sorry and make it matter. I stood across from him, firm but steady. You can't fix what you broke overnight. And forgiveness doesn't mean there aren't consequences. He nodded. But, I added, if you're ready to take responsibility for everything, we can try to start over. Slowly. Honestly. He wiped his eyes. I want to. I really do. I'm not here to save you, Ethan. That part of parenting is done. But I'm here. If you choose truth over shortcuts. Then I picked up the keys from the table. I'm keeping the house. I understand. But I'm not closing the door on you. Not yet. I turned to leave. At the door I paused. Your mother believed in second chances. Don't make her faith in you a waste. As I stepped outside, the air felt different. Cooler. Lighter. Not because everything was fixed, but because I'd finally let go of the anger, and held on to something stronger, peace.